And that is round 3 of the MotoGP World Championship for 2023, all wrapped up after a dramatic Sunday, especially in Texas. And it was the Wild West out there for a few of them. Bit of drama out of the day. Bit of drama. So let's unpack all this. It's time to discuss the fallout of what was a dramatic day in Texas. And as usual, I am going to start with MotoGP. I've got a few things to talk about in MotoGP that I just really need to get off my chest. And then we're going to move on to Moto2 and Moto3 at the end. Everything's going to be time stamped. You can skip ahead to whatever you want if you want to do that. Sunday is the big day I want to talk about here, because after we've been getting used to Saturdays being the dramatic one, the exciting one has been the Saturday for the first 2 races, because we've been getting into the sprint thing and all that. This week, it was Sunday that gave us all the drama, had us on the edge of our seats. The main reason for that is because it was a Sunday of missed opportunities for quite a few of them, across all 3 classes, but especially in MotoGP. And I want to start on that topic of missed opportunities, because and I guess the most obvious and biggest one is Pecco Bagnaia. And I was inclined to give Pecco a pass in Argentina for that crash. It was wet. Sometimes these things can just happen. But when it's 2 in a row, this time from a leading position, ooh, is he relapsing, Pecco? Is it a relapse back into, is he an addict, letting himself have a little sip of the wine and then go, oh no, I'll be right. He's about to have a full-blown relapse. Is he going to go crashing out of the lead all the time again now? I don't know exactly where I stand on this one, but I do think it is, when it's one in the wet, I can forgive it. When it's another one here in the dry, and yes, he was under pressure from Rins, but he's not really under pressure, is he? Because there's no one in this World Championship that can consistently put up an effort to go and take this World Championship off of him. He has to lose this, I think. I think it's a pretty fair consensus to say that he would have to lose this World Championship rather than anyone else beat him. Because like we see the likes of Rins this week and Bezzecchi in Argentina, these can be, maybe they'll have other Grand Prix throughout the season where they can do this, but no one's going to be able to put this sustained effort towards him every week. Like, he can be on podium pace or race-winning pace every single race, every single sprint, every single race. The only other person that you can see doing that is maybe Enea Bastianini, who of course has crashed out in the first week and missed the last 2 injured. So where's this pressure coming from? And me being the amateur psychologist that I am, I could see a little bit of something there that maybe the shadow of Valentino Rossi looms over these young Italians, especially these VR46 Academy riders. So Rossi's brought these kids through and they've idolized and grown up watching Rossi and idolizing him. And Valentino Rossi, even when he didn't have to and the title was all but over and he didn't have to win on the day, he would scrap like a dog and get elbows out and ride wheel to wheel with guys and risk crashing to win the race when he didn't have to. And he used to, most of the time, he would win that race. And that's what made him the best. And I wonder, because Pecco spoke a lot pre-season about how he got that out of his game. He knows now he doesn't have to be like that. He doesn't have to win every race. He can take a step back and maybe settle for second here and there. These are the kind of things he was saying at the start of the season. But then as soon as it comes a chance to put it into practice, he's failed. And I'm wondering, like, you can say that to yourself till the cows come home. But at the end of the day, if you want to be the great champion that he was, is there something in his psychology that's going, I'm going to go and win this. I'm going to smash Rins today. Oh, Rins has pulled to 10th back on me. I'm going to put that 10th back on him. Is there something in his psyche that's doing that? Because nothing else is pushing him, because he knows he doesn't have to win. Like, he's in a unique position now that I don't even think he needs to win a single race. Like, I know he will win more races because he is going to be the quickest guy on a lot of the days. But he doesn't actually have to win a race. If he ran around in second and third all season, Mir style, and then like it's a different rider challenging him each week. So last time it's Bezzecchi, this time it's Rins, next time it's Bastianini, time after that it's Marquez. Well, who cares if they take one off you each time? Because the next time they go out, they've got to drop back to 6th and 8th, 9th, 10th, and then they're not going to get barely any points at all. So like he's in a unique position here where he doesn't actually have to win the races. Now, obviously you want to go and win as many races as possible. I know we're sitting here from our couches, going, What are you doing? Well, it's always different when you're out there. I understand that. But he said it. He said that he doesn't need to win these races. And he needs to learn to settle for these positions when sometimes a guy's just going to be better than you on the day. But yeah, and look, Pecco's gone on then to blame, I can see the theory in what he's saying when he's saying the bike is too stable, which I guess what he is saying, and it's a bit of a joke, there's a few memes out there about it. It is funny. It is funny to hear. He wants the bike to be a tenth slower and all this stuff. Not that he wants that, but he's just saying that is a reason. Like, if the bike is more on the edge, you know where you are at all times. But if the bike just feels comfortable all the time, and then the moment that it's uncomfortable, you won't know the difference and it's gone. And that's what he's saying. I can see the thinking. It just sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? It just sounds ridiculous when you hear it out loud. And look, blaming weird things and other things on your failures seemed to be a bit of a theme of the weekend. So Jake Dixon did it in Moto2, blamed everyone but himself for crashing in the warm-up lap. So it was a theme of the weekend, and I did think it was funny each time I heard it. But yeah, but Pecco, look, he'll still be world champion because it's going to click at some point. And maybe he just knows he's got such a buffer that he can try and do that in these early rounds, and he can still make up the points later on. It's fine. But he's still going to be the world champion, I think. And, it is just funny to see because it really is MotoGP at the moment. It's just like, who wants to win it? Like, there's no real standout talent, really, is there? I mean, there is standout talents, but some of them are not on competitive bikes, so they're not in the equation. Pecco, you feel like, is Pecco just another Dovi, but in a better situation? You know what I mean? So, like, in another time, with other guys around that were doing more, would he be this dominant? Probably, maybe not. But, we'll see. We're going to answer that down the line. The second missed opportunity of the weekend I wanted to talk about was Jack Miller. KTM's an interesting one because for the first couple of rounds, I was skeptical of the pace. I was skeptical of the consistency. I wasn't sure what to think. I thought at any moment this could disappear and probably will, just because of the bike's history of just being a little bit shit, right? But this weekend has me a lot more encouraged. Both riders qualifying straight through to Q2 in the top 10. For starters, at this circuit is big for them. Two riders in, they've one of those, KTM's one of those companies that across their four riders has always struggled to get even one rider in the top 10 of qualifying. The bike doesn't qualify well. And then in the race, they both finished in the top 10, Binder and Miller, which again, really good stuff. You want to see that. That's just good outright performance, generally on a circuit that you historically are not good at. So that's fantastic. That's good. They both did a solid job on Saturday. Sunday rolls around, and something I might discuss a little bit later in the video as well, actually, where sprint races almost give you a redo, like a mulligan. But I'll talk about that in a minute. But on Jack here, Jack gets himself into podium position early in the race. So through the first few corners, it's a great start. He's into third. Now, even though it does look like there is an upturn in their fortunes, and these opportunities will come more often than they have in the past, it still feels like they need to take every single one of these opportunities when they come. Jack being in third and looking comfortable, I might say as well, looked really comfortable. Wasn't really necessarily losing pace with the front two, not gaining pace on the front two, and certainly was not going to be caught by Fabio, I don't think. And I think Marini had a good finish to the race. So had he stayed on, I think it would have been a battle with Marini for that position, which then would have turned into a battle for second position because of what happened to Pecco later in the race. Whilst I think he and they will be really encouraged with what Jack was about to do, he'll know that he's really messed that up there. He's really messed that up. And look, with Pecco as well, and with the next ride I'm going to talk about after Jack, and with Jack here, and every other rider that went down over the weekend, this is not typical for this many riders to go down. We had like 14 finishes in the race, and one of them was Binder, who crashed earlier in the race. It is like big missed opportunities for these guys. What have they done? They've messed up. Some credit has to go to the circuit here for just being generally difficult, and the surface isn't ideal, and it's probably a little bit bumpy, and there's that patch they talk about in that hairpin. They spoke about a lot over the weekend, and I think Aleix went down on it. So some credit has to go to the circuit. So maybe we can cut these guys a little bit of slack. Even Pecco, we can cut these guys a little bit of slack. But at the same time, they're professionals and they maybe need to know in these situations, even though they feel like they are not quite pushing to the edge, but you're on a difficult circuit where there's a lot of guys going down all weekend. Jack went down 6 times over the weekend or something like that. He's got to know that this is coming. This can't have been a surprise for him. So maybe he needed to ride at a 4th place pace instead of a 3rd place pace. Maybe he needed to ride at Fabio's pace. Maybe that's why Fabio crossed the line at the end of the day and Pecco and Jack did it, because he could have gone quicker, but he chose not to. You've got to ride within yourself. This circuit will bite. And Jack, big missed opportunity. And everybody should go and have a read on the Jack Miller website. He posted it on Twitter as well, and I shared it. I retweeted it. He does a little write-up after each race, and I think it's fantastic. Go have a read of it. He gets his thoughts across really well, and it's well written, I think. And yeah, everybody should go and have a read of that as well. And I think every rider should do it. Even if they don't publish it, just go and write down your thoughts. It's one of these like stoic things, isn't it? You get up in the morning and write down your thoughts and all that stuff. I think every rider should. I think it would be good for their head. Do it at home, whatever. The third rider, and like I said, there was a lot of guys that went down over the weekend, and these are the 3 I really wanted to talk about, was Jorge Martin. After a sensational Saturday, went through them like a hot knife through butter on Saturday after qualifying poorly, and then absolutely smashing it in the race. He was definitely way quicker than his qualifying suggested. I don't know if he made a mistake. I didn't get to see qualifying this week. Didn't get to see qualifying, but I got to see the sprint race, and he was brilliant. And then we get to Sunday, where you see a guy like him and you go, this is where Martin really needs to make his statement this season, because this is it for him, right? His next move is to a factory. He missed the Ducati ride, perhaps because of this. This weekend summed it up. He's as fast as anyone, probably is the fastest out of anyone over a lap in the field. Like, some of his qualifying, some of his 1-lap pace, and his short distance pace is sensational. When we get into races, I don't know if there is a tendency for him, because this has happened quite a few times. If there is a tendency for him to push beyond the limits of the bike on heavier fuel loads or on early race tire pressures, or if it's just an excitement thing and you're going out of the blocks, but he's just he's only lasted a few corners here and taken Alex Marquez with him to boot. What's he doing? He knows he's quick enough that day to get back on the podium again, even coming from as far back as he was. He probably didn't need to be that aggressive. And you can see where the difference was with Jack, where Jack had to be aggressive off the start to gain those places. Martin probably didn't. And he decided to be was he being aggressive? They were just riding side by side. But he's just dropped it through the twisties there. Again, this circuit will bite you, but he did it the day before. He did the business the day before, so there was no need to be pushing maybe this early in the race, because over a full distance, I don't know what he's got over a full distance, I don't know what he's got over a full distance. We've seen him win a race before. Has he won 1 or 2? Whatever it is. But generally, he doesn't quite last the distance in the race. He doesn't quite get there. So, I mean, plenty of waffling going on today. So if you want a clear and concise my thoughts put down so they make more sense, you can subscribe to my Substack as well, guys. There'll be a link in the description, and I do a write-up of what I'm talking about here, and I release that weekly. You can go and read me put these thoughts down in a far clearer and less word salady kind of way, right? But yeah, Jorge Martin, I just don't think the way he's riding, and I know he's probably going to get the Yamaha right, they're probably going to give him the nod. But I don't know if I would be looking at him over other guys. I mean, would you prefer to go and throw a bit of money at Alex Rins? I don't know when his contract's up, but just come on. He's going to take a factory ride over the LCR ride. And Jorge Martin is not a proven quantity. Not at all. Because every time he gets a chance to prove himself, he does something like this. But let me know where you think Martin is at. Do you still think that raw talent is enough? Would you take the risk on him? I don't know if I would. Because sometimes you can turn that into a top guy. But I don't know in Martin's case. He's been every year, it's not I know he's not on the factory team, but he's always on a latest spec bike. I don't know if they are this year, Pramac, but last year they were. So I don't know if he's shown enough, especially when you compare to what Bastianini did on a different spec bike last year and what Bezzecchi and Marini are doing this year. He's not any better than them for me. He's quicker over a lap, but I don't know if he's any better a MotoGP rider. Enough negativity. Let's move on to a race winner, Alex Rins, who was sensational, and he's proved once and for all that the gap in MotoGP between the best and worst bike, and there is a clear definition between what the best bike is and the rest. The difference between them is so small, and you can see it in the qualifying times and things like that. But the difference is so small that just being on a circuit that I guess COTA is one of those ones, because of the nature of it, a lot of guys probably don't enjoy. but you're on a circuit that you like that a lot of people don't. And you've probably, because of that, you've arrived with a good mindset and you're really positive about what result you can get that weekend. Just by virtue of that, you can make the difference up. And you see that with Marquez, where a rider can make up the difference. I think the same will apply for Fabio when he gets somewhere that he likes or somewhere that suits that bike a little bit more. And you saw it with Morbidelli in Argentina a little bit. I think the same will happen. We've seen the same happen with KTM already, and we know the Aprilia is not as far off as their results have suggested so far this season, because they've been not quite as on it as they were last season. But they're going to be able to have races where they do it as well. The gap between the bikes is so small, like almost as small as I can't remember a time like this. I mean, maybe there has been. I have to go and have a look back through everything, and there always has been times where there's always more than one bike that's competitive at the front, right? But the gap between the worst and the best here, it just doesn't seem that, you could have sworn the Honda was the worst bike on the grid after Argentina. And now you're kind of like, well, if Rins can put it together a little bit, maybe he can win a couple more. Like, we're all of a sudden having this conversation. But look, he was brilliant. I thought he was really good. And it was seems like a really popular win by the response on social media and stuff like that, which is good. Alex Rins is one of those what could have been riders especially after Mir won the World Championship. And I think a lot of people always consider Rins, and I was probably one of them, considered Rins to maybe be the more complete of those riders in terms of he has that little bit more outright pace than Mir does. Mir's fantastic as well. I think Mir, and all this suggestion at the moment where, Honda's made the wrong decision. I mean, it's been 3 races. We've gone to a circuit that Rins liked and somebody else has crashed out of the lead in front of him. So let's calm down a little bit. Joan Mir is still a top rider, and this Honda just doesn't get along with some people. So maybe if there's a circuit that Mir, I don't know if Mir has a circuit like this, so that's the only problem for him. He might not find a circuit where he's like this. He's just one of those consistent guys that just is the same everywhere. He's a very good barometer to find out where your bike is actually at, to be fair. But yeah, Alex Rins always had that little bit more to be able to go and win the race, run at the front a little bit more. But then he's always been the one that's maybe been a little bit more inconsistent until recently, because now Mir's crashing a lot. So I don't know where that's come from. But anyway, Rins, really good. Popular win. Glad to see it. And just quickly touching on what I spoke about earlier on the sprint race offering a second chance for riders. And Jack summed that up perfectly this weekend, I think. And this is another point on the sprint race where I think it has offered a little extra dimension that you wouldn't have got before. So obviously Jack's seen something that's happened in the first race, the way everyone went into turn 1 or whatever. Or maybe he just by chance got a good start. You never know. That could just be the case as well. But I think it does offer a chance for guys to go, so yesterday when I did that and I just maintained position, what if I just fire it up that side? Or what if I take to the inside of that guy? I know he's going to try and do that. And I think it's really added an extra dynamic to the start of races anyway. I don't know if it helps later on, because obviously it's different. You approach the race differently because it's the longer distance, but it's certainly off the start, I think offers like a mulligan for guys to go and be like, I know what I did wrong there. And obviously then other guys who maybe did it right and think, I'll try and do that again, don't know that he's going to try something different now, and then they might lose position. So it's all very interesting. Anyway, that's a little point on the sprint race that I wanted to make. That's me done for MotoGP for now. Let's move on to Moto2, where I think this was my favourite race of the weekend, simply by virtue of the fact that my favourite kind of race is like the 1v1 duel. I'm a big fan of the 1v1 duel. Obviously, grew up on the Rossi 1v1 duel. Is the race that I got to watch almost every weekend. There was no group finishes back then. It was like Rossi and Biaggi would break away, or Rossi and Gibernau, or Rossi and Caparossi, or whoever. It was always Rossi. And that's how I used that was really exciting for me. And to see it here in Moto2, and not only did we get a nice duel at the end, but we got a duel between the 2 best guys in the class. It was the 2 top guys in that class, Pedro Acosta and Tony Arbolino. I thought they both rode brilliantly. Could have gone either way. Pedro Acosta showed his class in the end. And I do want to make that point, actually, that this race, in a nutshell, encapsulated everything for me that Moto2 is this season. The 2 best guys got to the front. Pedro and Tony Arbolino, I think, are going to be a bit too that bit too good for everyone over the course of the season. Obviously, it's not going to be the same every race. Where Pedro has that little bit of extra class to edge Tony. Alonso Lopez comes out like he's been shot out of a cannon and runs hot and cold throughout the rest of the race, making mistakes, running wide, going quick again, somehow making up places towards the end of the race after dropping all the way back to 9th, ended up 7th or something. That's Alonso Lopez. Sometimes he's going to be able to stay at the front. Everything down to like who was in that following group. Canet, Ben Snyder made up places at the end and got a podium. Well done to him. But generally he won't always be there. But like Canet, Salach, Aldeguer, all in that following group. Everything down to the fact that Jake Dixon crashed on the warm-up lap all sums up what Moto2 is to me. This isn't Jake. It's a joke, mate. Like, it's a joke. I'm joking. You're obviously going to be in that next group, right? You're good at motorcycle racing. Okay, I'm sorry, mate. It was a joke. Calma. Okay, so yeah, that race for me in a nutshell was Moto2 this season, and it was my favorite race of the weekend. Just because I don't know if it was that exciting over the course of the race, although there was a lot going on, but just the way it ended in that 1v1, I thought was really fun. On to Moto3, another really good race, and I'd just like to point out that whichever way this result went, I thought all 5 of these guys that finished in the top 5 of this race were sensational. I thought they were all brilliant. It was all ridden hard but fair in the right spirit. Listen, I'm going to be honest, I watched this race when I got home from work. It was probably about after midnight. I was watching the replay. And I think I've missed a couple of laps because I was dozing off a little bit. But I was there for the whole last 5 laps. So maybe something happened in there that I missed where someone clattered someone. But it just seemed like it was all ridden in the right spirit. And all 5 of them were brilliant. They all had a chance coming into that last lap to win the race. And they all really did give it a go. I think maybe Olgado was the one that maybe didn't really have the best look at it out of any of them. Barrera certainly made a play. Masia, I think, probably was odds on to win it until the Sasaki incident, and we'll talk about Sasaki in a second. And then Artigas was just always there and managed to pick himself up on the podium. So I thought it was a really, really fun race and classic Moto3. That's what you want to see from Moto3 every single time. And then on the winner, Ivan Ortola, I mean, the fact that he had that huge moment first lap and then ended up all the way back 20th or something, and then worked his way back up. Now look, once you get in the lead group, you're in the lead group, right? It's just the way it is in Moto3. So you really only have to fight your way back up to 8th, and then you're in that group. You can slowly just work your way to the front. But the fact is, he did go all the way back, and he's worked all his way back up to the front, and was sensational to win the race in the end. Like I said, I thought Masia was I would have been backing him to win it had the Sasaki thing not happened. But at the same time, Ortola had ridiculous pace all weekend, so maybe there was no beating him on Sunday. Maybe there was no beating him. And then on Sasaki, we've got to the point now with Ayumu Sasaki where he's entering John McPhee territory. And what I mean by that, this was probably the year he's been there too long already, right? Some of these guys get stuck there, even though they're really quick. But he's probably been there too long already. This was the year that he basically needed to be world champion, Moto2. Because if you don't world champion and you've been running at the front there for that long at that age, it starts to become, otherwise why wouldn't you have taken him on his ability already without the world title to his name? But he's got race wins and all that. Sometimes go up for less, So something is wrong there. It's looking like he has given this title a head start to these guys who I thought were probably a year off being that level, Olgado, Moreira, but apparently not. They're on it this year. And Sasaki, while everything was in his favor, has handed all the advantage back to them and now has a real uphill climb if he's ever going to win this title. And if he doesn't, I can feel his next move is I don't know, tell me how you'd say this, a sideways move, a backwards one. He's obviously not here to end up in World Superbikes. He's here because he wants to end up in MotoGP. He wants to go to Moto2 and he wants to do well in Moto2, and then he wants to get the opportunity to go to MotoGP. Maybe I'm being dramatic because it's only been 3 races, but has he thrown it away, or is he throwing that away? Food for thought on Ayumu Sasaki. Tell me what you think. And that's it. That is all the fallout from this week. Obviously, like always, there's so much stuff that I don't get to cover because I don't want it to go for an hour. And like I mentioned earlier, if you'd like to see my more concise thoughts on what's happening in MotoGP, plus a few extra little bits that I publish every now and then, you can subscribe to my Substack in the description below. It's free, and you just get a newsletter in your email inbox every week. About a 5-minute read for you. If you have made it this far and you are enjoying my videos, you can always watch more. And there's another one right here in which I discuss what is wrong with MotoGP. That's it. We'll see you on the next one. Take it easy.